welcome to the final pro-social modelling video. Now this, again, like effective communication, is a slightly fluid, grey topic and is something that you will find numerous amounts of studies, books, videos on that will go into a lot more depth and will focus specifically on building good relationships, but it is an important element of pro-social modelling, which is why I have included it in this series. But as with all the other videos, again, it is literally going to be just brushing across the surface of the topic, because you could do a full week-long course on building good relationships. So the idea of this video is just to give you a little bit of a feel of things that you can do, specifically if you are trying to implement elements of pro-social modelling into your leadership style, just to help you develop those skills. Now, the thing with building good relationships is that actually a lot of natural leaders will find that this happens anyway without them having to do anything. And again, this is another reason why it's actually quite a hard topic to teach, because for a lot of people it's something that comes naturally, and if you're not naturally a people person, then it might be quite hard to go against the way that you naturally act. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a bad leader or you can't be a leader. It just means that you're going to need to be more conscious of building those good relationships. There is a video that I normally use for this module, which is actually Steve Jobs talking about collaboration in Apple. Now obviously this is quite an old video, it's quite outdated, but he does talk about the way that Apple is structured in terms of their organisational hierarchy, and the fact that there is no I am up here, you are down there, this is what we're doing, my way or the highway, just get on with it. He actually talks about how if he's working with a team on a project, the team will actually challenge him and say, do you know what, Steve, that's not right. That isn't actually the best way to do things. We need to do things like this. And as a leader, he recognises that actually, just because he is the senior person in the company, doesn't necessarily mean that he has all of the best ideas. He's not always right. And that is a really good example of a great leader, because actually he recognises that yes, okay, he's the leader, he is a good leader, and he is going to steer the direction of the business, he's going to captain the ship, but actually it's going to be the crew that make the ship sail and get them from point A to point B, and because of that, they are the people that are going to know best, because they're the people that are doing it. You can come up with all of these great ideas and think about how things might work, but then actually when you take it to the people that do it, they're going to say, no, that's not the best way to do that, do it this way instead. And as a leader, he acknowledged that, accepted it and embraced it. So that's a really, really good example to use. I will put a link to the video down in the bio for the video, so if you want to watch that you can. But when I looked into the topic of leader versus manager, I did actually find it really good. It is a Steve Jobs quote, but it was being a manager, getting people to do the things they don't want to do. Being a leader is inspiring them to do the things they didn't think they could. And I think that just helps with the whole building good relationships thing. If you inspire people and motivate them, if you use all of the other parts of pro-social modelling as a leader, you're going to build a good relationship with your team members, and they are going to be inspired to not only not work for you, because that's not really what you're aiming for, but they're going to want to develop, to grow, to basically become you're a role model, and that's what they want, that's what they're aiming for, that's what they're looking to achieve. So these kinds of good relationships are going to help develop them, help motivate them and inspire them, encourage them to perform. Obviously, the key to this is listening. Now, we talked about effective communication, about what we say, how we say it. The key to building good relationships is actually to listen. So it's not about saying anything at all, it's about listening to the other people. But it is linked into communication, because you're having those conversations with people and you're going to listen to them, and you're going to really listen to what they're saying. So for example, in that 2 truths and a lie game that I talked about in effective communication, you're going to listen to what they're saying about their 2 truths. It might be about their pet, about their kids, about where they went to school, about their favourite holiday. And remember that. You can then go back and talk to them later on, you know, months down the line, and say, oh, you know, are you thinking about going back to wherever it was, Peru, wherever their favourite holiday was? And they will think, oh, I don't remember telling him that. He obviously listens when I talk to him. When you look at leaders that build really good relationships, Dan Cockerell, from former Vice President of Magic Kingdom at Walt Disney World, he has a podcast, and I've been working my way through his podcast. I will do a review of it at some point. But one of the things that he mentioned was he had a little, I don't know whether it was a notebook or whether he used his phone, but he was the manager of 12,000 people. Now, trying to remember the names of 12,000 people is going to be difficult enough, let alone thinking about what their kids are called or what their favourite pet is. So what he would do after he spoke to somebody, he would make a note of their name, and he would make a note of a couple of points of interest that they talked about. He might then not see that person again for another 2 years, but he'd be like, oh hey Frank, how's the kids, the dog, the wife, you know, anything, the boat, anything that they've talked to him about, he will then be able to ask them about it. And that builds a good relationship, because that person then thinks, wow, somebody as important as the Vice President has actually remembered me and remembered things about me. Now, it doesn't matter that he used a cheat sheet, notes, prompts, whatever. The fact is that he, as a leader, made sure that he was listening to you and he remembered those things about you. Now, he obviously would have to look them up and prompt himself about them to remember them, because with 12,000 people, you're not going to remember everything. But taking that time, listening to people, finding out what's important to them in their lives, that will help build a good relationship. So other important elements, as well as communication and listening, is honesty and integrity. Now, as a leader, these are vital skills anyway, and I think if you're not honest and you don't have integrity, then you're probably not going to be a good leader anyway. But for building good relationships, they are essential. If people think you are lying to them, they're not going to trust you, they're not going to want to work for you, they're not going to perform for you, they're not going to follow you. So you have to be honest. And this sometimes means telling people things they don't want to hear. You're underperforming. We need to put you on an action plan. Your behaviour is not acceptable. You're going to get a pay cut. The office is being relocated. You know, anything like that. But if you have a good relationship with your team, that's going to help that conversation. Obviously, motivational conversation and effective communication is going to impact that as well. But you have to be honest with people. People are not going to trust you and follow you if they don't think you're being honest with them. It's going to demotivate them, it's going to make them suspicious, they're not going to perform to their fullest, and they're probably going to be looking for another job, because if they don't feel that they can be trusted, why should they be actually doing what they're doing anyway? But people are going to feel demotivated, they're going to feel excluded, they're not going to trust you, they're not going to want to work for you, and at the end of the day, they're probably going to go and try and find a job somewhere else where they do feel trusted. Because if they don't feel that you're being honest with them, then they are likely to feel like you don't trust them to be honest with them, and that's going to demotivate them, and it's just going to damage your relationship. You cannot have a good relationship, good working relationship with somebody if you are not honest with them. In terms of integrity, that to me was once described to me as integrity is honesty when nobody is looking. So, do you walk the walk? Do you talk the talk? Do you do what you say you're going to do? Do you come through on your promises? Do you just do what you say you're going to do? Are you honest and true to yourself and true to your word all the time? Or is it all just a big front? Now, this again obviously comes back to hypocrisy that we were looking at with behaviours, but a key thing with building a good relationship is that no matter how much you listen, how effectively you communicate, and no matter what you do in terms of a leader, if you don't have honesty and integrity and your team don't think that you are honest, then you're not going to have a relationship with them. They're going to be wary of you, they're going to feel distanced, they're probably going to feel like you are superior, or you feel like you're superior to them, so that is then going to make themselves, as a result, feel inferior. Nobody likes being made to feel inferior, so I think that honesty and integrity are also really important to building good relationships. So hopefully that has helped explain that topic a little bit. Again, as I said, it's quite a fluid topic, quite a hard one to talk about specifically, because there are whole studies done on it, books and books and books on building relationships, so it's obviously quite hard to summarise in 10-15 minutes, but hopefully I have helped a little bit. even if just to give you that inspiration to go out and find out a little bit more about building good relationships. This is the last video in the pro-social modelling series, so hopefully you have found that helpful. Hopefully you now understand how pro-social modelling can help with leadership and honing your leadership style. And if you have any questions, then obviously leave them in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you next time.